Welcome to Women in Paint. Whether your paint story is dripless or an old school mix of project management, business ownership, or modern estimation, the stories of women in paint are now part of the industry's rising success. We'll educate, encourage, and promote diversity and gender equality by giving you a behind-the-scenes look at our proven skills, business acumen, and driving force that propels anyone to find meaningful opportunities and a career path that challenges lives through paint. Now let's welcome your host, Michael Cheney.
All right, I am back with Dan Street. He is the Director of Sales and Marketing at No Drip Painting. Dan, welcome back. You ready to talk about our third and final episode in our sales process? All right, let's do it.
I'm ready.
So we are going to talk about presenting and closing. So just to get you caught up to speed, if you have not watched episode 1 and 2, I encourage you to do it. We are walking through our whole sales process. We do present on the spot. We have certain tools and things that allow us to do that, which I will be going over in a separate episode. But Dan, let's get at it and let's talk about our closing. Now, a few things I'll say is that for years, I never thought when I was doing sales that I could get to the point where I could present on the spot. And then I certainly had a lot of anxiety about actually asking for the sale. Now, those are things you have to do. And I will say that I've grown over the years. And if I was in the sales role now, I would be able to do those things. But let's start talking about that. One, let's take a step back and talk about why are we presenting on the spot? And then let's start building out how we do this. So why do you think, from your experience and what you've seen with our team, why it's important to be able to present on the spot?
Well, there's a couple different things to think about, right? Like from a ownership or leadership of the business, we've spent X amount of dollars, for that lead. We've spent X amount of dollars to have the estimator or the salesperson go out to the appointment, run the appointment, whether it's 20 or 60 minutes long. As a business, we've spent a substantial amount of money to get to this point, right? So we want to capitalize on that, and I guess, to be cliche, strike while the iron's hot, right?
Yeah.
Obviously this customer has raised their hand, this homeowner has raised their hand and said, hey, I'm interested in the services that you guys offer. And we've got their time, we've got their attention, we hopefully have their focus. And I just don't see a reason as to not do that, especially if you have a dialed in process like we've talked about in the last 2 episodes. And then as long as you have a dialed in presentation, there should be no reason to not present on the spot. And, our friends over at Paint Scout, John and Michael, have a great product that's really propelled us forward a lot, right? And given us the ability to be able to do that. And then as a salesperson, I want to have that. I want to pay off, right? I want to be able to capitalize on the 30, 60 minutes, 90 minutes that I've spent with this homeowner and be able to close that sale, because that's what I'm motivated financially to do, right? And then I know we're going to talk about follow-up, and that, that a lot of times allows us to get the sale as well. But why not just clear it up right now and get the yes and then move forward from that?
Yeah, for sure. So I always hear you say, and other people in sales, you want a yes, but even a no is a good answer. So talk about the difference between yes, no, and I'm not sure. How do we frame that, and what is the real goal of a sales rep?
Yeah, a good sales rep, I've heard a long time ago, and have been through this many years to be able to prove that this is true. A sale is really just a transfer of emotion. And you have tagged our company. One of our taglines is changing lives through paint. And coming on board for the short amount of time that I've been working with you, it really does that. That's a real thing, and it's my job to train our sales team to be able to verbally explain that to a homeowner. We're not a fly-by-night company or anything like that. We're a real professional structured company, and it's up to the salesperson to be able to portray that to the homeowner, and transfer that emotion of the excitement of a drab, builder grade paint on a wall in a room.
Yeah.
To something that they love and feel safe and secure in. And I know that's a big ethos of yours and a big talking point for you.
Yeah, and I'll say, from my perspective, the one that owns the business and the one that is, been in this business, been literally in every position, even the sales rep position. Most of our competition is not presenting on the spot. Okay, we know that there is we're fighting against a lack of professionalism and organization and all the things, which is why there's so much opportunity in the industry. But we know that it is very likely that our direct competition in our area is not presenting on the spot. So that gives us the upper hand. And even when I've gone out and I've shadowed some of our reps, it's not uncommon for the customer to say, "Oh, you're going to give me the quote now?" Right? Especially if they've gotten other estimates. So I will say that I think it gives us a huge advantage. Now, as we go navigate this process, we're in the customer's house, we're measuring, we're recording all of our information. We step out into the vehicle, we put our quote together, and then we come back in. Let's talk about what it looks like when we come back in, what we're saying, how we're presenting. I know that we use our iPads. Let's talk about what that looks like to the customer, and then we'll talk about our no drip difference and basically why we're telling the customer we're the team you should work with. So they come back in, they've been out in the vehicle. What does it look like for the customer?
Yeah, so we've trained our team and this is a little bit of psychology here, right? We have trained our team to try to get to the kitchen table. And this is something I learned a long time ago. The kitchen table, for most people, whether you think about it in the forefront of your brain or not, is the most intimate area in the home, right? Like that's where you share meals with your family and friends and break bread or kill a bottle of wine, whatever it is, right? Like that's where you have that intimate time with your family. So we try to push to get to the kitchen table to be able to do the presentation. Um, Whether it's knee to knee or across the table from each other, doesn't really matter. I prefer side by side because then you're able with the iPad to kind of pivot and move and switch things around if you need to. And I know we'll get to kind of like additional work and things like that when we're talking about the estimate, presenting the estimate. But that's what we really try to do is we come back inside and then we ask for somewhere to sit. Is there a table that we can sit at to review everything? And then we always bring up the kitchen table. I think the second best place is the living room or wherever the TV is at, the sitting room or what have you, to sit like on the couch for the same psychological reasons.
Yeah. So the idea is to, I like how you always say it, get to the table. That has a different feel to it. And then what we're going to do is we're basically going to say, look, here's why you want to work with us. And what I would encourage everybody to do if you've not done this, and I know that it depends on where you're at in your business, on how thoughtful you've been able to be on certain aspects. But we have a list of 5 items that we call our no drip difference. And these 5 items are essentially the reason why someone should work with us and why we think or know that we're the best choice, right? So let's start with the first point of the no drip difference. And by the way, I'll say, and I know you're going to build this out, but what's going to happen is our sales rep is actually going to have an iPad and be able to visually show them a presentation. Our estimating platform comes equipped with this presentation. If your platform doesn't have this, you could easily create something in Google Sheets, Canva, or whatever you want, and then you can build off of it. But we've got the no drip difference, and the first piece of that puzzle is the complementary color consultation. Dan kind of talked to us about that. It's kind of self-explanatory what it is, but what are the points that our sales rep is highlighting to the customer? Why is this color consultation important?
Yeah, and I know we're not, breaking down any barriers or surprising anybody with this, but I feel like one of the biggest reasons that a homeowner doesn't want to move forward is because they don't know what color they want. I mean, how many different whites are there, as an example, right? So we offer that as it's almost a pre-objection handling of a sales, the sales process. So, we have a couple of interior designers that we work with, one being on staff, and then a couple others outside of the company that we work with. And it's just a service that we offer to our homeowners to be able to say, hey, listen, you don't have to stress about this. We've already handled this for you because we are a professional company. We know that this is a concern for you and we've already got it taken care of. And then, our salesperson kind of talks through the fact that, we can offer you a color consultation with one of our designers to come out, spend some real intentional time with you, and just make sure that you're going to be thrilled with the colors that you're picking for your house, whether it's the interior or the exterior of the home.
Yep. And somewhat recent Sherwin-Williams statistics say that 50% of people don't move forward with a painting project because they don't know what color to choose. And then I'll just tell you, we offer complimentary color consultation on every project. I know people try and get real nuance and say, well, I only offer it if it's, $2,000 or more, or have some sort of stipulations on it. We've essentially removed any stipulation on a color consultation. It's just a value you get whether you paint one front door with us or you paint an entire house. Next up on the no drip difference.
Michael, real quick,
Yeah.
Yes, if you don't mind, another thing too with the color consultation from leadership standpoint is, assuming most of your listeners are business owners, is that, something that surprised you and I is the upsell opportunity, right? Like, we've had one of our designers has sold at least $20,000 in upsells just from going out and verbally painting that picture, pun intended, for the homeowners. And then there's just all of this add-on work that just is coming behind it. I mean, I know you and I talked and we expected a slight uptick, but I don't think it's anything. We didn't forecast anything near what we're getting. I mean, as an example, our designer last week, one of our designers had a $5,200 upsell on a project. Not from any high pressure tactics or anything like that. It was just verbally, painting the picture of what the house is going to look like. And then all of a sudden, here comes all these other decorative finishes and lime wash and, all kind of crazy stuff that came from just that one appointment.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So this has surprised us so much. And I will say, we've done color consultations for years. We've brought in someone, thankfully, it's on our team. She's now a sales rep. But she's a designer. She's super creative. And what she's been doing has blown our mind. She has, like Dan said, has been going on these projects after the job is sold and is adding thousands of dollars to the project, to the point where we are starting to have some thoughts and brainstorming. Oh my gosh, is this a whole tactic, a whole strategy that we need to lean into? I will say, you need the right person, right? We've got the right person on the team that can really, really put together a great design and get a customer excited about it. But yes, it is. We are seeing that if you've got a skillful person in this color consultation role, I would invite you to track their progress, offer an incentive for the upsell, right? Think outside the box a little. It has been a pleasant surprise, and at some point we might circle back and have a whole episode on that, because it's a whole thing I think that we can build out. All right, next up on the no drip difference, we've got the dedicated project manager. Dan, why is that important? Why would a customer care that they've got a PM to work with directly?
So in this day and age, post-COVID world, right? A lot of people still work from home and have a home office that they need to be in and can't oversee the painters, right? So whether they're at home working or in the office working or even on vacation, which we see a lot too, it just allows them that comfortability to know that there's some oversight there that they don't have to deal with. Again, it's another pre-objection kind of a thing that we've positioned ourselves as a value add to work with us, is that you don't have to worry about management of your project. Are the painters doing the right thing? Are they painting the right thing? That's what the PM is for. And it also, it allows, if a homeowner's on vacation or, they live across the country and this is their second home or a rental property, we're able to send progress photos and videos of what's going on. If the homeowner's not near, they're able to see what's going on, what kind of progress, and then they can have that intentional conversation with the PM as to, I thought things were going to be doing, this way and that way. And it just allows that local management for them to have a little more comfortability knowing that there's somebody that's overwatching the painting crews.
That's right. And the other thing that this does for us, if you have a customer who's ever concerned about the language barrier, because we do have language barriers at times, this is what can help them rest assured that, yes, there might be some language barriers with some of our team members, but we've got a project manager that is bilingual and we take care of you. And I will tell you that part of our strategy in hiring project managers as we grow is one of the requirements that they have to be bilingual, and it's working out very well for us. All right. High touch service. I'll say high touch service is something I've never I've never battled with, meaning that I'm willing to put more money into our oversight with project managers. And, I think it's an investment in the business for us to have a really, really strong customer experience. And that's what our high touch service is. Dan, what do our sales reps, how do they communicate high touch service to the customer? What does that mean in terms of customer experience?
Yeah, a lot of it is already started before we get there, thanks to messaging that goes out, through Paint Scout, and through our CRM that we use and things like that. So there's not a lot of limbo there for a homeowner. They get, emails, text messages, calls from the office, things like that. So there's always communication happening. And even from the sales rep, once we've delivered the estimate, if they need to speak to a significant other, or they just need some time to kind of review things, there's always communication happening, so that there's not really that limbo phase of, well, what's next? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We really try to, from the onset of the lead coming in all the way through the scheduling and the sales process, and then even production, we really try to come alongside our clients and our homeowners and kind of hold their hand and guide them through this process, because maybe they've worked with a painter in the past who's not a truly professional company such as ours. So we really try to just kind of be there for them, and eliminate any concerns of, well, what's next? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right. The process starts well before we get on the job. It even starts, I would say, in the estimating process, with the ease of the estimating, the follow-ups that we send out. The other thing that would fall under this is that we do what I call cute little gifts at the end of the project, whether it's our cookie can, if it's we have cans, branded 1-gallon paint cans that are wrapped in no drip, and a no drip logo. And we'll do fun little things, whether it's if they get a new, maybe they've got a new puppy and we've picked up on that during the process. This can might be filled with doggy toys and treats, or cookie cans, or cookies, or if they certain bottle of wine they like, they might find a bottle of wine in there with a thank you card. So that falls into that high touch service. And by the way, at the beginning of our sales process, we make sure our sales reps pick up on little cues. So if they just moved to town, or if they're, Ohio State Buckeye fan, right? Go Bucks. If they are a fan, or they have a certain team they love, we want to know that, because that's how we can add that special little gift at the end. All
Yeah,
right.
and we talked about that actually in our first episode, in the discovery phase of the call, of the
Yes.
appointment. So if you haven't listened, make sure you go back and listen or watch.
Nice plug, Dan. Way to plug episode 1. All right, professional team standard. Professional team standards. It is our 4th no drip difference point. And what does that mean? And why is the customer going to carry? Why is this a differentiator?
Well, again, I think it starts with our branding online. Whether it's a Facebook ad or if it's our website, it just shows that we're a professional company, and that we have standards, and then our estimators show up in a dress code. You know what I mean? We're in polo shirts or button-up shirts and dress slacks, or we're wearing company branded attire, or we've got name tags, things like that. And then we slide into, when the production team comes in, we on the production side of the business, we have uniform standards for the craftsmen as well, right? Like, they can't have too much paint on their clothes, because we don't like that perception. And these guys, the craftsmen always have rags in their pockets and in their hands, so that they're not wiping paint all over their clothes. And we don't allow loud music, or any music at all, really, any smoking or drinking or anything crazy like that on job sites, people's homes, because we recognize that we're a guest in their home and in their neighborhood, and we're representing that homeowner, not only the business, but also the homeowner themselves. So we want to make sure that we are being gracious guests in their neighborhood and in their home.
Yep, right on. And we're going to get that point across in our presentation. And then last but not least, we've got a 5-year warranty, which is going to let the customer rest assured that we're going to make sure that the surfaces we paint are there to last. Anything else you want to add about the 5-year warranty, Dan? How does our warranty compare to other people? I mean, most companies offer a warranty. Why do you think that this is important for us?
I think it just lets the homeowner know that there's some protection there, some insurance, some backup, right? If something crazy were to happen, that we're going to be there to rectify the problem. It also speaks to the fact that, again, and I know I keep beating this drum, but that we're a professional company and we've been around for a long time, and the plan is to continue to be around for even longer than we already have been. So I think it gives us a chance to also bring up that we are an established company, and again, we're not fly by night. We're not, just a chuck in a truck, as we like to say, and that we're going to be around to back that warranty up.
Very good. All right. So our sales rep is in there. They're at the table. They've just gone over the no drip difference, which are those 5 points. Now, what does it look like when we reveal the price? I know you've got some strategy around this. So
Yeah.
talk to us about how do we show that presentation, and what do we say about this $20,000 interior we're about to ask you to pay for?
Yeah. So, again, we go through all of the no drip difference points there, and through our discovery phase of our appointment, we're finding out what's going to be the most important to the homeowner, right? And we're going to talk about all 5 of those things, but maybe we're going to park on, dedicated project manager, because this homeowner talks about being burned in the past with a less professional company than ours. So it really allows us to build that out, because we're using some information from before later on in the process to, again, kind of handle an objection that we see around the corner coming. So we go into detail on the scope of the work. We review every space that we're going to be working in. We verify all of the homeowner's contact information, because we're obviously going to need that for follow-up should that happen, or for someone in the office to reach out to schedule a color consultation, or to schedule the production of the work. We will go through any colors if the homeowner already knows what they want to use. And then we kind of detail out, again, thanks to Paint Scout, we've already got a lot of stuff already built out there that's automatically put into the quote based on whether it's interior, exterior, or decorative finish. We go through all that prep work. We really build out the value of prep work. I think probably 90 to 95% of homeowners don't realize how much prep work it actually takes to protect their surfaces and things of that nature. So we really build that out a lot, because again, it helps just add value to the process of what we're doing, and it shows that we know what we're doing, right? And it helps us justify that price that's coming. So Paint Scout allows us to hide or to turn on and off line item pricing. And I've trained our team to turn that off, because just like anybody that goes to a store and buys something, when the cashier hands you the receipt, first thing you do is look to the far right and then the bottom right to see what the total dollar amount is. And that's what the homeowner wants to know at that time of going through and building out that estimate, is how much is this going to cost me, right? I've known for 15 minutes now, because I've built out the estimate in the car. I've had time to call my project manager if I need to kind of verify some things or what have you. But I want our salespeople to be the only source of information at the time that we're building that value of the prep work and the spaces and what all it's going to take to produce the work and the finish that they're looking for. So I want our salesperson to be the only source of information at that time, which is why we hide the line item pricing. And then I've trained our reps to not scroll up on the iPad too far to where it shows the total dollar amount until we're ready to do that. So we build out the prep work, we build out the colors and the production of each space. And at that point, then I've trained our team to say, so the investment for all of that work is, and then we slide up the iPad, it's $20,000. How does that sound to you? And then we've trained to say, how does that sound to you? And then sit back and don't say another word. Because again, I've known for 15 minutes what that price is. I need that number to hit the homeowner, let them think about it for a moment, let it register, and then let them say something first. And there's a lot of psychological data behind that, but it allows me to even feel the energy in the room change. If it does, we've had plenty of times where a homeowner will then immediately say, oh, that's actually less than I thought it was going to be. And then it's like, great, let's sign, right? But I want that. We've trained our team to let the homeowner kind of sit with that number for a minute, and then allow them to digest it, and then let them speak first. And I've sat for what feels like 3 days, waiting for a homeowner to say something. But I've really worked on for my past 20 years of sitting in that silence, staying in the pocket, and just allowing them to kind of digest things, and then let them speak first.
Dan, how do we've got a young sales team. How do you coach them to be okay with that silence? I mean, I'll speak on my own behalf. That would feel weird to me.
It's
Now,
super weird.
now
It's
I'm
super
saying
weird.
that knowing I know what we're doing, and I know why we're doing it. But you've got a young sales rep. How do you just say, look, be cool, sit there, let there be silence, be okay with it? How do you coach someone towards that? What should they be telling themselves in that moment?
So I've gotten to the point where I will find anything as a distraction for myself because even 20 years in, it's still awkward, right? I will play with the dog or the cat. I will look at pictures on the wall. I will sit back and just relax. I'll even change my posture, get comfortable. And it's me kind of, subconsciously telling the other person that I will sit here as long as I have to. And the way we train that is role playing.
Mhm.
We're
Yeah.
fortunate enough to have an office that's got a nice training room in it, and we will sit there and role play and role play and role play, and just getting them used to sitting in the silence and just being okay with it.
Yeah.
And it's still a challenge, you know what I mean? But it's something that they're getting used to now. And we had a meeting, training the other day of kind of talking through some different tactics. So we're pretty intentional about meeting at least once a month as a team, sometimes more often when we're all in the office together. It's like, hey, we're all here, let's practice something, right?
Mhm.
And it's just really that role playing and letting them know that it's okay for things to be quiet. I've heard, as a salesperson, when you're talking, you're selling. When a homeowner is talking, they're buying. So it's okay to let there be silence and let people think through the information you've given them, and then be able to respond accordingly from that.
Yep, right on. Okay, so we sit in the silence. We've revealed the price. For the interest of time, we're not going to get into a whole bunch of objections because I think you and I are going to come back and do a whole podcast on that. But what happens next? What if there is the, we won't talk about the yes. The yes is what we all want. We all know what to do after that. We have our own process. But what do you do if there's some sort of uncertainty? I know we've got you coach our team to try and draw out what the question is. So what does it look like if, the customer's just, oh man, that's a lot more than I thought. Where do we go from there?
Yeah. So initially, we try to isolate the objection, right? So, is there more than one thing that's holding you up or holding you back from making a decision? And I know we're going to get into objections down the road, but the basic answer, the kind of overarching thing is a confused mind will always say no.
Hmm.
So an objection can be because I thought it was going to be less. Okay, well, let's figure out why. Or well, I'm not sure about, because we're leaving for Europe in a week. I just don't know when we could do this, get this done. Can you get it done in that time? Then we can pivot back to the project manager, or or scheduling out a couple of weeks, or whatever that looks like. So it's really, an objection is not a no. It's not a period. It's a comma. It just opens the opportunity for more conversations. And I don't want to tip our hand for our next episode, but a lot of green salespeople hear an objection and think it's a no. To me, it's just a question. It's an opportunity to talk more about something that I haven't built out enough for that customer.
Yeah, and I think the key there, what you said, I really like is you isolate the objection. You try to figure out really what are they concerned about. Maybe they're not concerned at all. Maybe they just need some more clarity on some certain things. Maybe it is scheduling related, right? Maybe they want this done at a certain time in a certain timeline, and that hasn't been revealed throughout the process. That could be an easy fix. What we do, I will just tell you, is that we don't want to lose a sale based on a timeline. So we will literally do just about anything we possibly can. Now, we're fortunate. We've got a big team. We can move things around. We can be flexible. But I think the key there is isolating that objection. We are about at the end of our time. So at some point, we'll circle back and do a whole episode on objections. Before we leave, though, let's talk about follow-up. So the customer's on the fence. They're not 100% sure. We, I think, have a strong follow-up process that, of course, we are always looking to improve. I think if we want to talk about the competition, most of the competition isn't doing any sort of follow-ups, especially if your competition is, the painter who's the business owner, who's doing the estimates, who's in production. when I was in that role, I just literally did not have time to do follow-ups. And I will also say that follow-ups were probably a little uncomfortable for me, right? So what are the kind of the beginning stages of the follow-up? At the end of the appointment, the customer's like, you know what? I need to talk to my significant other. I'm just not ready to move forward. What does our follow-up process look like at that moment?
Yep. So at that moment, if we've pressed in to try to work through the objection and we're not able to move past that for whatever the reason might be, we schedule a follow up right there with the homeowner, a day and time that works best for them. Hey, I need to speak to my significant other this evening. Okay, great. That makes sense. How does tomorrow at 10 a.m. sound? Or I need to speak to my significant other. They're out of town for another week on a business trip or whatever. Okay, how does next Wednesday at 3 p.m. sound? And then we send a calendar invite to that homeowner. And I think that there's some psychological benefits there too, because if it's a driven person, they're going to see that in their calendar as a deadline, right?
Yeah.
This is something I need to meet. So, and it also shows there's buy-in from the homeowner too. It shows that they're intentional and that they are interested and that this is a priority for them. And then the sales rep will send a calendar invite to the homeowner to the agreed day and time. And then that shows up on everybody's calendar. And then the sales rep is able to make that intentional phone call of 10 minutes worth of time to then circle back to follow up on whether we're closing or answering to objections or things of that nature.
Yep, that's right. So we do a scheduled follow-up, and then we've got our estimating program that does some automation there too, and all that good stuff. All right, Dan. Any other points we want to bring up about closing with confidence?
I think the one thing that I always like to bring up is when you have newer salespeople or people that aren't comfortable with the sales process, especially when it's a really big number, and a big number is a relative word, is that your budget doesn't matter at all. What you have in the bank, whether it's your personal bank account or even your business bank account, doesn't have any bearing whatsoever on the estimate you're about to deliver. So I think a lot of times I've seen with newer salespeople, they put their $400 in the bank up against the $7,000 estimate that they're about to present, and it makes them nervous. Then it makes them come off as if they don't have confidence. And then again, I go back to my main point of a confused mind always says no. So if you've given this whole hour-long presentation of measuring and all of that, and you're confident and firm with what you're talking about, and then you come back in and you go, and for all of that work, it's going to be $7,000. It comes off different, right?
Yeah.
It comes off unsure, and then again, a confused mind always says no. So I think you lose a lot of sales because of that.
Yeah, good point. Last but not least, who are some sales folks that you either follow on social or books that you read? What recommendations would you make to folks if they want to get some more information from someone that maybe you follow?
Yeah. A guy in the industry that I really respect and look up to, Bradley Hartman. He's more of a lumber and building materials guy, but a lot of his information is applicable in this world as well, in the paint world as well. He goes really deep into sales process and tactics and things like that. So I would definitely look him up. He's got a lot of good information online and a really good podcast to check out as well.
All right, good deal, Dan. That's a wrap. And if you enjoyed this show, find our first and second episode. You can find it on my YouTube channel, which is Michael Cheney. And we will see y'all here next time.
Thank you for joining us on Women in Paint. We hope you feel compelled to follow your own path and use your compassion, strength, and skills to build a career in the paint industry. And if you like this episode as much as we did, give it a simple click to subscribe so we can invite you back to our next episode. And be sure to share it on all your socials. Remember, Women in Paint, stir up more than just a can of eggshell.